Coming up on today's show, in celebration of the 45th anniversary and re-release of Alien this coming Friday, we take a look back to 1992 and break down the final installment in the original trilogy, Alien 3.
The apocalypse is upon us. Let us be ready. Let your mercy be just.
Stay tuned. Welcome to Scary World, where we walk you through the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I am your host, Arturo Padilla.
Hi.
For those of you just joining us, we have one major rule around here, folks. No spoilers. Now that we got that out of the way, there are 5 categories: production, story, ensemble, horror, and legacy. Each category can score up to 2 points.
Showtime.
Per IMDb, the synopsis goes, returning from LV-426, Ellen Ripley crash lands on the maximum security prison Fiorina 161, where she discovers that she unwittingly brought along an unwelcome visitor. This was David Fincher's feature film directorial debut. Before this, he previously directed a bunch of music videos, and after Alien 3, he went on to direct movies like Fight Club and Seven, The Game, and other notable films. Here in Alien 3, he showcases his talent behind the camera. The movie is shot beautifully. There are some iconic scenes in this movie that live forever, simply because Fincher was able to frame and compose shots at a very high level on his debut. The majority of the scenes are minimally lit, but Fincher was able to make everything very coherent through all the darkness. You know exactly what's going on throughout the movie. You know exactly what's going on when the action is going down. He does a very good job of making sure the audience knows and is aware of their surroundings and the character surroundings as well. The overall movie is edited and pieced together well. And is an overall visual success. But there is some CG that does drag this production down a little bit and is detrimental to the overall look of this movie, unfortunately. It's used with the alien and some other landscape sequences, and it does not look good, and unfortunately does bring down the overall quality of the visuals. But all that CG nonsense aside, David Fincher does a great job on his debut. They give him a franchise, a storied franchise that has had 2 successful movies back to back, and they expect them to get the job done here, and he does. He does a good job with the work here. He does a good job with the visuals and the production and making sure everything looks good and making sure the sound is good, the film is edited well. And like I said, there is some computer graphic issues here that we will discuss more down the line as the show progresses. But for production, because of the very solid work that Fincher does behind the camera and for those iconic shots that we still see to this day, this movie gets a solid 1 for production. I wish they would have done some better things with the computer graphics because it would have elevated the quality of the overall production and gotten a 2 out of its score. But a 1 is not bad, especially for a feature film debut. The script was written by David Giler, who helped with the story on the previous installment, James Cameron's Aliens. In this movie, though, Giler does a great job differentiating the tone and the vibes of the story. There is a hard pivot away from the blockbuster action of its predecessor and opts to go back to the slow burn approach of the original Alien movie. The script is paced well, with the expositional elements being weaved well into the story as to not impede the flow and the pace of the movie. The third act picks up the action and makes sure to put a final memorable bow on the trilogy. I really enjoyed this story. I enjoyed the suspense and the tension and the dread that they were able to create in this movie. And for story and the awesome narrative we got in this movie, it gets a solid 2. For that script and that story. The entire cast does a great job with their characters, and it's one of the highlights of this movie. They all have great dynamics and great chemistry and really help keep the audience engaged. Sigourney Weaver is back to reprise her role as Ellen Ripley, and she's able to successfully add another tragic layer to her story.
Lieutenant Ripley.
It's here. You got Clemens.
Stop this raving
Charles S. Dunton is seen stealing at every opportunity as the character Dylan.
There's gonna be 10 tons of hot lead in here.
I'm telling you, I want to die.
We got a deal. Remember? It dies first, then you. I'm not gonna move without you. Now get going.
He's always had a commanding screen presence, and it works perfectly for this role. He is absolutely awesome in this movie and one of the highlights of the supporting characters. Every time he is on screen, he is stealing everything and he is commanding everything and everyone in that frame. He is absolutely fantastic in this movie, and he's a great actor, and I'm glad he got a lot of shine in this movie. The rest of the supporting cast plays their part perfectly and help round out this great ensemble. Everyone in this movie played their piece to the T. They were a perfect piece of the puzzle to make sure this movie was a success. From the guy who gets killed in the beginning to the guy who gets killed at the end, everyone plays an integral part of this film, including Sigourney Weaver and Charles S. Dunton and the rest of the cast. Everyone did a fantastic job, and I think this is probably one of my favorite parts of this movie is this entire cast. And they really make things flow and really make things very engaging. The back and forth chemistry and the dialogue delivered between all of them is fantastic, and I really like and enjoyed how they all got along and how they kind of just sucked you in with their camaraderie and their brotherhood. I think it was a complete success, and the casting director should be commended for this because they grabbed a bunch of awesome British actors and they threw them in there, and they are great in this movie. And for ensemble and this awesome cast and the work they did and what they were able to accomplish, this movie gets a solid 2. There's plenty of blood and gore in this flick, and it all looks great and fantastic on film. The majority of the gore is practical, along with portions of the alien, primarily the close-ups and the really tight shots of the alien body. All that said, there is some very egregious use of CG in this movie that was used for the alien and some other landscape scenes. This CG, folks, did not age well at all, and it looks terrible. I'm not sure if it looked this bad in 1992, but it just doesn't look good. And it takes away from those scenes that the alien has both practical action and CG action. So you do a close-up on the alien killing somebody, with its freaking, alien tongue or whatever, and then it cuts to a CG. Of the alien running away or kind of on the wall. It's very distracting, it's very detracting, and it's very off-putting. It takes away from the overall look of the scenes and really takes away from all the hard work that was done to accomplish the horror this film manages to convey. And unfortunately, because of that terrible CG, this movie only gets a 1 for horror. And that is a damn shame because it does the practical stuff very well. But because of that CG, it just loses all momentum and all grounding that it has in that scene. It's not good, folks. This was a good movie and a fitting end to Ripley's initial story arc. It was dark, it was gritty, it was a well-told story full of tension and suspense and dread. There were loads of blood and a fun cast to sacrifice to the xenomorph. The CG, unfortunately, brings this whole production down, and it was just god-awful, to say the least. But at least the third act delivered when it came to story and the action. This was a good third piece to this trilogy. It's hard to make a trilogy, folks. It's hard to make a third movie to a trilogy when the second was so successful and the first was so successful. And Fincher had his work cut out for him here, and I think he did a good job with everything that was given to him. As his first feature film, I think he should be commended for being able to tackle this crazy intellectual property and make it into a very watchable film. I have seen way, way worse from first-time feature directors, especially with this kind of property that holds this kind of weight. And for legacy, and for the good work that Fincher did behind the camera, making sure everything looked good, and for the cast, and for everything that was done, this movie gets a solid 1 for legacy. It's unfortunate that we have Resurrection after this years later, which has a total crazy nonsense story, but I think this one was a fitting end to the initial Alien trilogy. So to tally it up, Alien 3 received a 1 for production, a 2 for story, a 2 for ensemble, a 1 for horror, and a 1 for legacy, bringing its total score up to 7. I really like this movie. As I said before, I think it is a good ending to what was an amazing 3-movie run here. I don't know how else you would want to end this story. There's so many ways you can go. But going from Alien to Aliens to Alien 3, I really like how the stories develop and how Ripley's character grows throughout the franchise. She is one of the best female characters created to date and one of the best final girls you can call her. Sigourney Weaver portrays this character beautifully throughout these 3 films and this entire trilogy. I really enjoyed Sigourney Weaver's performance in this one and everyone else's performance. I think the cast was super strong and made this movie extra watchable. And for that, this is a recommendation. I really think everyone should watch the entire Alien franchise. It's a great science fiction horror franchise. Alien 3 is a good bookend to this franchise.
Can you tell me what time it is?
And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you for watching Scary World. Don't forget to drop a comment down below and hit the thumbs up on the video. Most importantly, do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell all your friends, your family, and their pets to come on down to YouTube. Subscribe to CorpseFeed. We have spoiler-free horror movie reviews for you guys every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And along with that, we have the official CorpseFeed podcast dropping every Tuesday, anywhere you get your podcast streams. We are also on all the socials. Go check us out there. Go like, subscribe, and share. We will see you on Wednesday for another episode. And remember, it's a scary world out there, but we are here to walk you through it.